Hello. Welcome everyone to the 8th lecture of Basic Data Analytics using Excel. In this lecture, we'll be working with two concepts majorly. And trust me when I say this, when I was learning Excel the hard way, this annoyed me the most. And I always wanted someone to actually make me sit and make me understand both of them because it is not something that you will be using extensively. But you never know when these issues will come in picture, right? So the entire lecture is related to the two issues that you might face while we are working with different formulas, and we want to just step in right now only and solve it for you, so that before you actually jump into the major problems, that is a lot of formulas and functions combined together, you should not face this problem at that time, right? And whenever you face this problem in future also, you should know how to handle these problems and what is the meaning of such problems, right? So as you can see, we have taken another data set here. The name of the data set is Superstore. We have data set from a store that sells some products online. So we have order date, we have ship date, ship mode, customer ID, customer name. I have cleaned the data set. I have made sure that then first row is also frozen. After exploration of this, data set, what we can see here is this is not numeric. This is not uniform. For some of the data points, we have 4 decimal places. For some of the data points, I have 3. For some of the data points, I don't even have any data point, right, after decimal places. So I would like this to be a little uniform so that I can understand. Yeah, now it looks much better. And now I can understand also what is happening, right? And I don't think we need the product name. It is just taking a lot of space in our Excel sheet. So let's just delete that. Now it looks a lot cleaner, right? But for our chapter, we'll be working with only these 3 data points. So we need to calculate some of the functions to understand what debugging formula is. So I will tell you what is the function for revenue. Revenue is quantity sold multiplied by what is it, price, or let's say sales, right? So if I have to tell you, this is the price that we are paying, this is the quantity that we are paying, that we are actually getting from the first customer, right? So if I have to calculate revenue, it would be sales into quantity. But here's another thing, we have discounts at some point, right? We're giving, let's say, 45% discount or something like that. We need to take care of that as well. So if I have to say what exactly is happening, 45% of sales is 55% of the entire total value, right? So if we were supposed to sell a product for 100 rupees, now it will be sold for 55 after a discount of 45, right? So that is 1 minus 45. This is the actual percentage of sales that we are doing, right? So we need to adjust our revenue formula. Right now there is no problem because we don't have any discount here, but once we have a discount, we might face this problem, right? So to get the exact actual revenue that we are making at every single point, we need to adjust it by multiplying it with 1 minus discount. Okay, and once I click enter here, you can see the value remains same because we don't have any issues here. But once I do this, you can see the values will change, right? And all of this is actually adjusted. And revenue is here, profit is here, and if I have to, let's say, calculate expenses now, expenses is revenue minus profits. So this is the expense that we are getting, and vice versa is also true. Revenue can be equal to expenses. So I will give an equation to you here. Revenue minus expenses is equal to profits, right? So revenue can be equal to profits minus expenses. Profits can be equal to revenue minus expenses. and expenses can be equal to revenue minus profits, right? So this equation can work in a lot of ways, but don't get confused here. Just remember that this is just a formula that I have taken. Now, what is debugging formulas, right? So we have a couple of things here, and we have two different operations. We are subtracting 1 minus the discount rate to get this 55% value here, plus we are multiplying these two values as well. So let's say at any particular time you're not getting what you actually desire. For us, we have done the formula and we have written it as it should have been written. But for you, let's say you want to calculate the value of this area, right? So you can just highlight it and you can see a pop-up just above it, and it is telling you the value of this is 0.55. But instead of that, if you want it to be really clean, you have to click these keys, Fn plus F9. So once I'll click there and I'll select something, let's say I'm going to this 20 now instead of anything else, and I'm doing Fn and F9, you can see this value change into 0.8. So it is telling me that this formula and the formula that I had in 1 minus discount, the value is actually equal to 0.8. This is how we actually debug the formula. So whenever you have something in your formula which is actually not true, you can break your entire formula like this, and then you can obviously do undo, and then you can change the formula accordingly, right? So this is one thing that you need to take care of, and you can you need to think of. This is how we debug the formulas. Not a very a complex example right now, because we are not working with so many formulas, but we need to see how we're going to deal with some complex formulas once they will come, right? So before that only we are dealing with this, and whenever we'll go to, let's say, circular references, right? Now circular references are something, okay, you have revenue as a formula, expenses as a formula. Now tomorrow if you think that okay, revenue profits is equal to revenue minus expenses, so I will add a formula here as well, and you will like, okay, revenue, I'll do revenue minus expenses. Do you think it will actually come into picture? Will you get a value here? And if not, then tell me why exactly. You can see, and if I click on OK at that pop-up, you can see this new arrow coming up. See, the reason is to calculate expenses, we are actually using the value of profits, right? And to calculate the value of profits, we cannot use expenses then, right? It is just like you are giving 10 rupees to me to get 10 rupees back. There's no point, right? So if we had the value of expenses in the first place, why would we use profits as a value that we are giving to expenses? And whenever we have something like that, Excel will tell us that both of them are actually having a circular reference. We are using profits to calculate expenses, we are using expenses to calculate profits. There is no point, right? Because we can only calculate one thing from this equation. It can be either profits or it can be either expenses, right? So at the minute I'll actually write, let's say 100 here, you can see this problem got solved, because now two numbers are actually being calculated and one number is actually given to us. Right. So we can always remember, whenever we have an equation like this, we can always calculate one variable. And whenever we have a circular reference, don't get scared that your formula is not working or something. Just remember that what you are doing doesn't make sense to Excel, and you need to solve that. And once we have it, you can see there are one or more circular references where a formula refers to its own cell either directly or indirectly. This might cause them to calculate incorrectly. Try removing or changing these references and moving the formulas to different cells. And once we click it, it will tell us. So to calculate profits, we are using expenses. To calculate expenses, we are using profits. There's no point. Both of them cannot be calculated simultaneously, right? I hope this is, you are able to make some sense out of it. And if not, just remember, whenever you see a sign like this, you need to work up with the formulas in both of those cells. Right, you need to work up with the formula that is there on your U cell, and you need to work up with the formula that is there in your S cell, right? So nevertheless, I will remove this by doing undo again, and now you can see it is just a hard-coded number. So we'll keep it as hard-coded number only, and we'll go select this and fill all of this down. And again, this is on uniform. For most of them we don't have any decimal place, and then for sometimes we have 2 decimal places, and sometimes we have 4 decimal places. Let's make all of that uniform by doing number. Now it looks a little cleaner at least, right? Second thing that we might want to do is, whenever we have such formulas, and let's say we have a big formula after this as well, we might want to actually write, or we might want to see the references from where we're taking these formulas. In the last lecture, as you must have seen, in 7th lecture, we saw how sheets were connected, right? So let's say we have this entire big data set and we want to see where exactly we are getting all the information from. We need to see where the information is coming from. It might sound a little complex to you right now, but once I'll show you, let's say trace dependence, I'll go with trace precedence, and you can see it all started with sales, quantity, discount, and all of these three together. You can see a small circle here. These 3 data sets were the data points were the input, and together they gave us the revenue, right? That's what I was telling you. When we have a complicated formula, we might want to understand how exactly are we getting the data point, right? So let's say we have an error in revenue section, we can break it down and we can see, okay, we are taking these 3, we have a problem with these 3. So we can debug the formula like that. We can change the formula so that we get the desired information that we want to get, right? So this is a general thing that we actually are working with. Now for expenses, we are taking profits and revenue, right? So let's say I want to check dependence for this, precedence for this. Trace precedence, and you can see my revenue is actually, if I have to clear all of them, clear all, and then for this also, for revenue also I want to clear all, right? And I'll just copy this here, and let's say I want to check. Okay, now I was able to understand that expenses is actually dependent on revenue and profit. But what if revenue is again dependent on something, right? And then at that time we are actually going to do trace precedence again, and you can see that trace precedence again, there's another arrow, if you can see here, just coming up. There's another arrow that says that, okay boss, revenue is dependent on profit as well as discount as well as quantity and sales. I don't think it is dependent on profit though, but for sure discount, quantity and sales. These 2 arrows might coincide here. That's why we are seeing that profits is also dependent on revenue, is also dependent on profits. But nevertheless, this is how we are actually able to see which all are the input cells for our expenses. Now the application part of it will come later, whenever we'll face a certain issue while we are working with Excel sheets, right? But just know, if you are not able to get a desired answer to the formula that you have added, either it can be debugging, right? You can tap here and you can see what is the value that you're supposed to get above, or you can use Fn and F9 together to get the value, or you can check for circular references. That can be another issue. Or you can check for precedence as well as dependence. So this is really helpful while you are working with financial models, because the revenue will go into so many cells, and you will want to see which all cells are actually dependent on your revenue, and then which all cells are getting impacted again and again. Right, so if you change only one figure in some financial models, the entire model might get disrupted, and that's why we need to check how sensitive the entire model is. At that time, we'll use dependence and precedence, right? So that would be it for this lecture. If you have any doubts or any suggestions, you can always comment below, and you can let me know what exactly you have a doubt with. If you have any doubt which are to be solved personally, you can go to my main YouTube channel, and then you can send me a mail and ask me to have a session with you. I would love to have the session with you as well. So that would be it from my end. I hope you like the lecture. If you like the lecture, share and subscribe, and like, comment. And the objective of this channel is to reach as to be big, to be as big as possible, because with every 100 subscribers that we are getting, we are sponsoring the education for one kid who is in need, right? So I hope you will help us with our vision, and I will see you in the next lecture.